Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show, highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyles, community, and neighborhood. And now, from 4 Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Our house in the middle of our street. Our house.
Good morning and welcome to the talk show, All Things Moore County. Good morning, Dorothy.
Good morning, Bill.
New Year's was just a few weeks behind us, and every New Year's, we talk about resolutions and things we want to do. We want to set the record straight for the new year.
Yep.
And every year I have the same New Year's resolution.
Do you?
Yeah, you want to know what it is?
Sure.
Yeah. I try very hard to keep toxic people out of my circle, whether it be personal, professional, whatever. But why do I do it every year? Why do I have the same resolution?
Well, obviously you're not doing something right.
Yeah, right. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about a little bit today, navigating toxic relationships.
Oh, okay.
And I have, it's going to be a very interesting conversation. It's going to touch on business. It's going to touch on personal. We have a very good, gifted panel. And I have I'm going to just introduce everybody before we start. To my left, Rachel and Pete Hernandez of the Hernandez Group are 2 real estate brokers and 2 very well-respected brokers and friends. And the Hernandezes and I actually shared a mutual client this year and had a similar experience, which we have had the opportunity to talk about and compare notes. So from the business end, we'll have a conversation a little bit about that. I'll just say, Rachel, good morning.
Good morning. I'm glad that you didn't take me off the list because you were trying to stay away from toxic people. So
No.
I'm happy to be here.
We tried to bring you into the list more and more. I remember, Pete, we were at a benefit at Sandhills Community College back in August, and we had a conversation about the transfer of a particular client, and I'll never forget that conversation, and now I can look back on it with perspective. But you and I have been in business for quite a few years, different businesses. We probably have 100 zillion stories that we could tell about situations that now we look back on and see with a sharper focus.
No doubt, Bill. My background is in the automotive business. I did that for about 5 or 6 years, and then in the new construction and retrofit business as well.
Yeah.
And just by default, I ended up being the concern resolution manager everywhere I went.
By default.
By default. It's something that other people, other managers ran from, and I was the one that always faced the customer and in a care-fronting sort of way to make sure that they would understand.
Did you catch that word, care-fronting?
Carefront. I'm not familiar with that word.
I think we made it up.
Yeah, it's kind of confrontation with care.
Right.
Okay.
In other words, trying to figure out what it is they're trying to accomplish.
Right.
And making sure you remain unbiased and have your ears open to their conversation to make sure you are listening and understand their point of views.
One of our guests is writing a note because I know he's going to be all over what you just said, because that's a very good way of putting it into words to make it make a good word picture. The most important part about the show is when I came up with the title, I realized we've just had the passing of the baton in our political world, but this has nothing to do with politics, which is such a refreshing thing. My other guest sitting to my right is Farah Pulliam, who is a financial advisor with Edward Jones Investments in Southern Pines. Like Rachel, Pete, and I, Farah, you work directly with the public in the financial arena, and because of the nature of the business that you're in, money is a very personal thing. People, you get to find out their core, what they're about, and I can tell from firsthand experience you lead with your heart. So you know what they say about people who lead with their heart?
What is that, Bill?
What do you think I'm going to say? Sometimes they get it stomped on, sometimes they get misunderstood, and yet they keep coming back with their heart, and that, you probably do that all your life, but you'll have your heart broken from time to time.
Well, I myself, like Pete, I try to give service with a smile.
Right.
But there is times when you have to cut it off and say, you know what, I'm sorry, but I just cannot help you.
Could you repeat? No.
Here, here.
I should have heard, where were you about 4 months ago? Our third guest is John Tampa, who is a friend of mine. John has extensive experience as a leader in educational, corporate, church, and nonprofit environments, especially lately. John's one of his strong suits, he has many, but one of them is that he has served as a counselor and a consultant in areas such as strategic planning, individual and organizational conflict resolution. John came to our sales meeting a couple of months ago, and he sat with our brokers, and we had a conversation, and it wasn't about septic systems, and it wasn't about legalities, and it wasn't about contracts, but it was about human nature. And he has a way to open people up and get them to share. And so we're going to, John, here in the first set, we're going to pass the baton to you. First of all, thank you for coming and doing this.
I'm delighted to be here again, Bill. Thanks.
So John is also a yoga instructor, and he's mine. And look at me. Look how successful he is. Look how smart he is. I can bear it. No. So you exercise, you work out, and you talk, and you share stories. And so he has a pretty good background about me and about our situation. But Rachel, I just want to throw a quote out at you, and it hit me in seeing it the other day, because let me just read it to you. When people don't tell you the truth, what they really are saying is they don't value you or their relationship with you enough to be honest.
Very true.
Does it hit home?
It does.
We get our hearts broken.
Many times, yeah.
Yeah.
Because you care. I think it's a good thing to get your heart broken. That means you care.
Right. And if you don't have problems, you're not enrolled.
Exactly.
If you don't have issues going on.
That's right.
So we've had a little bit of a history with a toxic situation that I guess will make us stronger and better down the road.
I think so.
Right? Spotting red flags. One of the first things I have to tell you is the day that I met this client that you all had worked with, the very first day, she basically told me 3 bad stories about 3 people who had worked with her prior to me. Right away, that was a red flag to me, because when somebody is going to trash the people before, guess what? I thought I was batting cleanup. I was going to be number 4.
Yeah.
John, is that not correct?
You're story number 4.
I'm story number 4. And unfortunately for story number 4, we had a lot of people who, if you throw a stone into the river or the brook, you have ripples. And sometimes people's actions can affect so many people. And that's what we found in this contract situation. And here I am working as a buyer agent, and all my sympathy is with the seller. The seller was so honorable and so accommodating, and yet that was not perceived by my client. Instead, they were the bad people, and they were mistreating the client. And I'm like, what universe are we coming from here?
I see that a lot. It's like I'm not a divorce attorney here. I'm not, let's try to come up with a win-win, and I know you very much have the same philosophy.
Right.
And I mean, sure, there are times when one party is being unfair, but oftentimes the client does feel like the other party is against them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's difficult. There's a fine line.
One of the things about Pete and Rachel is I know they give 100% and they do it from their heart and they're trying to help somebody. And any byproduct of working with somebody, if there's compensation, that's fine. But the effort is genuine, it's heartfelt. And that's the one reason why when I heard all the things that were said in a negative way, I didn't have a red flag big enough to stick in the back of my pants or in the back of my car to drive around with, because I said, I have to just really pay attention. And sometimes we pay attention and then all of a sudden we forget about it.
Yeah, and I mean, it's the same thing from when I met the client when they came to me. And, you know, there's a part of me that thought, well, maybe they're misunderstood. You know, maybe I can communicate better. Maybe I can, you know, reach them, meet them where they are. And then you just have to realize, you know, I'm not Jesus. You know, I can't save this person or this.
You couldn't save her?
No.
Gosh.
No, couldn't do it. And
Neither could I.
And so, but you know, there's obviously a pattern there,
Right.
and but you know, you lead with your heart. You want to be that person that was able to really help them, and
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
we know how that ended up.
Pete, I don't know if you work do you work directly with the same clients, or do you break it up based on personality? Or
Yes, Bill. As a matter of fact, with this particular client, Rachel passed the baton to me. She couldn't take it anymore. She had
I hope
reached
no
the
one's
end of her,
listening to this right now.
she had reached the end of her rope, and
yeah,
I figured that I could handle this client because of
Right.
my background and experience dealing with difficult people.
right.
And,
Let me just say, when you know you're reaching the end of the rope, you're responding in a way that is not your best. It brings out the worst version of yourself, and when that happens, problems.
John,
So-
Rachel said something that I think I shared with you, and I'm not quite sure exactly how you said it, but I didn't forget it. She said, when I was in that situation and trying to be a helper, I felt bad about myself. I didn't feel good. I don't know how you said it. Do you recall? Can you say it on the radio?
I guess it was, I don't remember, but
Okay.
something like that.
Yeah.
But probably a lot more eloquent than how you just put it. But no, he took over for me, and he's so much more patient. I take things to, like, you know, dagger to the heart. He's more pinprick. You know, it'll ruin my every, you know, to my core. He's not like that.
Pete?
Well, over the years, I've developed what they call thick skin, and I'm able to
What's that?
pull myself away from the situation and kind of hover over the situation, detached, if you will,
Right.
I just got a
to
visual.
make sure I can offer the best solution. But unfortunately, everything that I tried, I was proven wrong,
Uh-huh.
and basically confirmed Rachel's situation with this particular client.
Mhm.
Things were twisted around and manipulated, and things that I knew I had done for this client were just glossed over like nothing ever happened, and
Right.
I couldn't connect basically
Mhm.
with this client, no matter how hard I tried,
Mhm.
how many times I went after hours on the weekends.
Right.
Everything I tried was not working, and that's when I had to pull the plug myself, basically.
And the last minute appointments were great, weren't they?
Oh my goodness!
Is that 12-hour notice? Perfect.
Right? Yeah.
Right. John, we're going to get off the specific and move more to the general. Do you agree with the word we're using, toxic?
I do, and actually have a lot to say from having heard what I've heard so far.
Right.
So if you'll bear with me. So the first thing that I wanted to do, I'm a lover of words, and I wanted to know, where does the word toxic come from? And I think that you'll resonate with this when you hear this. But there's this practice, warriors putting poison on the tip of an arrow. And the Greeks used that as a weapon of war, and the arrow of poison was referred to as the toxicon pharmacon, which literally means bow drug. Isn't that interesting?
Very interesting.
And in life, as I listen to you all, Bill's told me he's had 950 real estate interactions, and you have so many, and there's a bell curve of where clients fall, on a continuum of functionality, but there's nothing that truly prepares us for that person who's truly toxic. And we give people the benefit of the doubt because generally people fall in that bell curve, but nothing kind of gets to that experience where, my goodness, I actually am over my head. And you mentioned, not liking the way that you feel, and I wrote down some of the typical signs that you're dealing with a toxic person, so I'd love to have you comment on
like
this.
the top 10 music. Okay.
You're emotionally affected by their drama.
Yes.
Yes. You dread or fear being around them.
Yes.
Yes. You're exhausted or feel angry when you're with them or after the interaction.
Yes.
Check. I feel bad or ashamed about myself.
Yes.
Yes. You're stuck in a cycle of trying to rescue or fix or care for them.
Mm-hmm.
The other person doesn't respect the word no as a complete sentence.
Correct. Correct.
And you feel like you're walking on eggshells.
Yeah.
It goes on and on.
Yeah.
So this idea of trusting our gut, that something truly is wrong, you feel it. You feel it in your neck. You feel it in your breath getting shallow. Your heart races.
Right.
Feels in its churning in the stomach. All of those things.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Yeah. I think, we're all human. Sometimes I'm not on my best behavior. I'm sure you're not, whatever. But I don't think that behavior defines someone. And I try to give people grace because I'm human too. I've had a bad day or what have you. But I think when you see that cycle and you're constantly feeling that way and you feel just like you're just sucked dry and you've got nothing left, I think then that's red flag, so.
Yeah. And the other thing is about a toxic person is you're just interacting with them in this small portion of their lives as it has to do with purchasing a home, but they go and make people happy at Walmart, and they go to the bank and make other people happy, and it's this traveling show. And Pete, one of the things that impressed me that I wrote down is when you use the word carefronting is this ability that you have to kind of be detached, to not to witness what's happening, see what's happening, and at the same time not being quite affected by it. And that's an incredibly important tool for not being hooked by a person who is truly toxic. And you do get to the point where you say, there's nothing more I can do here, and you just kind of have to send them on their way, and you have to go on with your life because you can get caught into all of that. So the technique that you use of trying to pull back and see what really is going on here is a very useful one. And even with toxic people, sometimes the only solution is, just like you said, Farrah, saying there's no more I can do for you here. It just does happen.
Yes, it's interesting that you said the differences to the way Pete handled the situation and to the way Rachel handled the situation, because I've always been told women are great salespeople because they're able to build a relationship. But women are it's very hard. I share Rachel's opinion. I take it very personally when I feel like I can't service somebody.
Yeah.
What's wrong with me
Absolutely.
versus what's wrong with you because you're not liking me.
Right.
So.
Oh, yeah. I think part of our personality, I can just tell, is, you're a people pleaser.
Yeah.
I'm a recovering people pleaser. I don't know about you, but I'm working
Well,
on
I
it.
need to join that group.
Yeah.
People.
And I'm going to sign up for
Pleaser.
Pete's new class this year to how to thicken my skin.
Yeah.
I think we're going to come back in the second set. We're going to run over, I know, on every section today. We're talking about navigating toxic relationships. We'll be right back.
And it's usually quite loud. Our mum, she's so house proud. In the middle of our house, it has a crown. There's always something.
Welcome back to the second set of All Things Moore County. Like so many shows, some of the most interesting conversations seem to happen during the breaks, Farrah. I know this is your first time on, and I know you're not in the on the real estate side of our business, but financial advising. But in talking with Pete and Rachel in the break, this client that we shared, a few weeks ago, she had the audacity to ask me to look at other homes while she was in due diligence, and I wouldn't do it. I couldn't do it, and I said, if you need to do that, call the listing agent. But I couldn't say anything, and it makes you just, I mean, you can't swallow when you hear. And I shared that with John, and he said, the nerve. Can you imagine? And then I thought, do I have a moral obligation to share that with the poor sellers? I didn't. I just thought it wasn't against the law, so I didn't. But anyway, the remnants of this toxic situation, John, will meander through our conversation. But having said that, we're moving on. Farah, you must think we're all very fragile, but we're not.
I don't think that at all.
We all care, and we respect each other, and we actually, good brokers will look out for other brokers. They will help each other because we're in it, together. And I don't know what the financial field is like. It's a different arena.
No, it's funny. It's quite similar. My services, I provide proposals up front, and I give a direction. And then it's sort of like, are you ready to take it now with me? Or do you want to go with somebody else? And it's very similar to what you guys do. You do a lot of work for free. And it's a lot of time-consuming prep work that, it comes with the territory. But in the end, what do we all want to do? We want to give the customer what they want.
But it's a privilege for us to do work for free. It's a privilege for us to have the ability to have conversations with people to try to help them.
Yes, I agree.
And to have the freedom to do that. Sometimes things don't work, but they don't work for good reasons. They don't work for layered reasons. Okay, John, I'm done. I'll throw some cold water on my face. Toxic relationships just don't happen in business. They happen with friends. They happen in interpersonal relationships. You've had a tremendous experience, life experience, and you understand the nature, I think, probably way better than we do, where you can sit back and automatically take a bigger picture view sometimes and not micromanage it.
Yes. I go back to sitting in the presence of just a person who isn't happy unless they're unhappy, and I wonder, how does this get to be that way? And from just dealing with hundreds and hundreds of people in those kind of one-on-one situations, I start to reflect on the fact that, gosh, the divorce rate in this country is about 50%. And then I ask myself, does that make the other 50% of the marriages happy? And not necessarily so. And so then you start doing the math and you think, my goodness, children growing up in our country, maybe 75% of them are growing up in households where they're caught in the crossfire in some fashion. And when you're a little child and you're caught in that crossfire, very often standing up for yourself or having some kind of strong sense of self doesn't work. And so as a little child, if you need to get attention for yourself, you tend to act out in certain ways. And if a person is that deeply wounded, those coping skills that they learned as a child are what they carry into their adult lives. And so it's, I think, useful to recognize that when we come across such a person, that there's somewhere in that history of very, very deep wounding, which creates that toxicity. And so these are people that have to create drama and stir things up in order to have things going in their direction, because it's what they expect and what's safe. And for the rest of us, when you come across a person like that, it's okay, how can I calm this situation down? How can I tamp this down? And so I think it's also useful to reflect on how we tend to react when we're in those presences, at least initially.
Yeah, I mean, hurt people hurt people. Mm-hmm. It's a saying for a reason. So, but oftentimes you try to reach them where they're hurting, and you just can't.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Did part of your endeavor ever account for the conversation you had with yourself that said, what is it about me or about you that decided to hang in there?
because you think you're going to be that person that's going to save them.
Right,
You're going to
right.
be the one, and you know,
Right.
and you empathize with them. I mean, you know, and I do. I always try to, you know, I mean, it's we've all been misunderstood or hurt or felt, you know, whatever a toxic person claims to have happened to them. So I do come from a place of compassion, but sometimes, like, there's nothing you can do.
Right.
There's nothing you can do.
So, John, I'm a big believer, and you tell me if I'm a pessimist or an optimist. So I'm a big believer in the fact that people tend to repeat their patterns over and over again. They just take it to a different environment, and they start over, but those patterns keep creeping back, whether it's personal or whether it's business. Am I an optimist or pessimist? Tell me I'm a realist.
I would say that you're a realist. I mean,
Okay.
you've spun around the globe for 6 decades, and you've seen a lot, and I think that's an
Yeah.
assessment that's honestly earned, yeah.
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 I just see that pattern all the time, and I respect people's patterns, and I watch it. And there's a book. A couple of years ago, we had a speaker come to the at the time the Pinehurst Southern Pines Association of Realtors meeting at Pine Needles. His name is Richard Flint. He wrote a book called Behavior Never Lies, and he's a very bombastic and very brightly dressed and to get attention. But his message is so true, and in our business and in every phase of our life, you don't listen to what people say. You watch what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Lessons learned, right,
Mm-hmm.
It's funny you said that because
Farrah?
children today aren't getting that same recognition with interaction with behavior because all they do is interact with each other through electronic devices. So that would be interesting to see
Right.
how we're going to interact with that generation.
Mm. When I
If
was
we can't,
yeah.
do you know what I mean?
When I was a kid, my father would hit me on the back of the head if he would introduce me to, if I was in 7th or 8th grade, to shake somebody's hand. And if I didn't shake his hand and look him straight in the eye, I'd get hit in the back of the head.
Mm.
These kids today don't have that eyeball-to-eyeball social contact, I think is what you're
Yes.
talking about.
That's it.
Pete got a brick.
I,
Lucky.
I,
I've
Totally
got the
did.
scars to prove it.
I
Yeah,
bet
yeah.
you our fathers were very similar. I just have a gut feeling. I was like, Dad, I shook his hand. You didn't squeeze it enough. You didn't look at him straight on enough, for long enough, period. Tough love. But it was always, you're always out there trying to,
It's very cultural too. You
I-
know,
I think so.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you know, Bill, it's the background and the childhood and the upbringing that really instills the characteristics that we actually develop and use as adults. And I'm very thankful for my childhood and the way I was brought up, because that's what's made me who I am today,
right.
and
Yeah.
given me the discipline and the sense of morals and values that I carry forth in my everyday life and also in my business.
Right.
And the respect. He's so respectful of other people.
Yeah.
And very humble.
John, his credibility just comes like screaming through,
Completely,
right?
completely.
100%, right?
Yeah,
You would make a
he's-
judgment call like that
Absolutely.
in a heartbeat, so you'd listen to him. Ay, ay, ay. Some people, you don't know what lens are looking through. How did you made a connection between the 8 limbs, I need to ask you this, the 8 limbs of yoga and our conversation today?
Oh, yeah.
Can you, yeah.
Well, when people in our culture think of yoga, they tend to think of putting on spandex and Lululemon and sweating and going to a yoga studio and contorting your body and boy, aren't I cool and all of that.
Right.
Whereas the actual practice of yoga is something that is a very ancient and holistic and scientific method of a way of being in the world that has to do with first of all, codes of conduct by which you interact with other people. And interestingly, although these come from ancient India 5,000 years ago, when you listen to them, they sound an awful lot like the Ten Commandments. So there's something called a perennial tradition in world's cultures that the same kind of values and morals and so forth, in different language and context, tend to raise to the top. But in terms of interacting with other people, And as it relates to this conversation, the first concept is called ahimsa in relating with other people, which means non-harming. I don't do anything to harm another being, and it also means not harming myself as well, which is why a yoga practitioner is very careful about what he or she eats or drinks, ingests. But we also ingest through our eyes, and we also ingest through our ears. And if we're ingesting things into our bodies and into our eyes and into our ears, we're doing harm to ourselves. And when we get this sense that this person is beginning to cause us bodily harm because we feel it in our bodies, and we allow ourselves to remain in the presence of such a person, we're actually not practicing non-harming. We're actually harming ourselves. And that's why I say I think it's very, very useful to be that connected with your feelings and recognize that these are the body's early warning systems that something is wrong. The second principle of ethics in dealing with people is surprisingly non-stealing. And non-stealing has not only to do with taking something from someone else, but it also has to do with taking another person's ideas. But let me ask you this question. Have you ever been in a situation where you say, my God, that person just sucked the air right out of the room?
Yes.
What they were doing was stealing. They were stealing your attention and your time when it wasn't freely given. And so what we're talking about today is a form of theft that has taken place on any number of levels. And so the limbs of yoga go on from there. So it has to do with how you interact with other people, how you interact with yourself, codes by which you conduct yourself. And the third is, in order to be of any good in the world, we have to have this physical body that works, hence the poses. We have to use our breath in order to make that possible. And so what we call yoga in this country is more the poses and the breath and so forth, but it's really so much more deeper than that. It's being in the world in a holistic way where you can be of help to other people. So when Bill was talking about this, I was thinking of non-harming, non-stealing. This is what's happening here.
Just listening to you, I couldn't be more calm right now. We're going to come back in the third set. That was very well said.
We're going to take a nap, and we'll be right back.
Yeah, we'll take a nap and be right back. And she can take over as guest host. This is All Things Moore County.
In the middle of our house, it has a crowd. There's always something happening, and it's usually quite loud. Our house, it has a crowd.
Welcome back to our final set. Again, the conversation in between breaks is great. You start the radio and everyone stops talking. I don't get it. Let's segue a little bit into a personal aspect of toxic relationships and what they look like, because we were just talking at the break, Rachel and Pete and I, none of it, and Farrah, you might hear this, none of us, I think, ever understood how personally involved you get in the real estate business with your client. Pete, you were in the auto business. Can you compare the two? There's not that same intimacy, is there?
No, but when it came to the auto industry, I basically got my experience in the service department, where people were irate when the car was...
And had a right to be, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I was able to learn quickly how to address and diffuse situations to make sure that things were handled. And I learned the phrase, a customer is not always right, but they're always a customer. So that allowed me to detach myself and address their behavior. They just wanted resolution for their issues. And that's how I basically came up through the ranks in the car business, managing and dealing with issues and resolving them to complete customer satisfaction, because that was the biggest thing in the car business, is 100% customer satisfaction.
He reminds me so much of my brother, Ray. You met Ray. He reminds me so much of him. people don't always detach themselves from situations, and they get so close. There's that expression, you can't see the forest for the trees. And isn't that what happens in personal relationships?
Completely.
Right?
Yes.
You're so busy, you're recruiting Pete to go on the road with you that you didn't even hear my question. No, I'm kidding. But I listen to that expression, you can't see the forest for the trees. You get so wrapped up into a situation, you don't know it's toxic until you're like in the cesspool. And then you say, how do I get out of it?
It's like the horse with blinders on.
Yeah.
You know, you just see the dirt road before you, but there's this beautiful green
That's right.
landscape to your left and to your right, but you can't even see it. You can't even see it. You know.
We all have it. We were talking a little bit. We have a tendency to want to help people. We have a tendency to want to make things better. Is that a human condition? Is that a weakness? Is it a
I think it's
shortcoming?
absolutely, nurture is necessary for survival. I think it's an innate and life-preserving and life-giving trait. And any good thing that becomes a caricature of itself can be harmful. And when we are trying to be nurturing and helpful in a situation where a person simply is not open to it, that's where the rub becomes. And you know, I admire you, Rachel, for saying, you know, I'm hoping I can be the person here that's going to be able to help this person. That comes from the best possible place. But somewhere along the way, you begin to pay too much of a price for that.
And Farah, you were saying that wanting to help somebody, that's something you want to do, and you don't want to be robbed of that experience.
Right. And you're right, Bill. The best conversations do happen off air, so I'll give you a little bit of what we were talking about. So Rachel and I agreed that certain people, it's hard to deal with them, and so in our minds, we say we can't deal with them. But John brought up the best resolution to look at it a different way. It's not that we can't help them. It's our body is saying we shouldn't because it's damaging us. So I like that aspect of it. It's not that Rachel and I are lacking in anything and we can't be productive people and caring people. It's that we don't have, or we're not going to allow our bodies to take on the stress and the decomposition of the toxic relationship. We're not going to let somebody do that to us.
I will say it is quite rare.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I love my clients, you love your clients. I don't feel like there's this overwhelming, you know, toxic, you know, customers everywhere.
You're not looking for a parachute with every client.
Of course not. But there are extreme circumstances, and
you know what? Go ahead.
Yeah.
You know what the most disenabling instance is when you're trying to help somebody, where they discredit everything you say, and they get information from uninformed sources.
Their friends, dogs, brothers, sisters.
Yeah. From the cheap seats. And so everything you throw out there is denigrated. And you're trying to give them everything you know, the sum total of whatever number of years, the best information so they can make an informed decision. But they constantly are making you wrong. Why didn't I just say, enough's enough? I kept going. John, I probably need to talk to somebody.
Well, I think that you and Rachel are saying the same thing.
We're wired.
This is not the norm.
Similarly,
you know, and you, by your own admission, have had 900 and something real estate deals, and this is unusual, and thank God that's the case.
It is unusual,
But when it does happen in those few circumstances, the question becomes, what is it that we can learn, from that, from our own part, and we want to be the person to be successful, but you're giving this person tremendous information. But if the person is operating from a hermeneutic of distrust, it doesn't matter. You're speaking Swahili.
That's right.
It doesn't matter. And to recognize that this is what's happening, that no matter what you say, it has nothing to do with what you're putting out. It has to do with how it's being received. And is what Pete is talking about with this non-attachment, not being there. And when you do eventually get to the point of saying, I can't do this, what happens is you create your own space for a healthier and more nourishing relationship in your own life. You're freeing your life up to be for more space to be with your husband, because when you go home and you're depleted, that's all you can think about.
My happy place.
Yeah, it's difficult for everyone. You want to do the right thing, and sometimes the right thing to do is say, I think we've gone as far as we can.
Walk away.
Yeah.
Sometimes in business relationships, you can walk away. It's easy.
Mm-hmm.
In personal relationships, sometimes it's so much harder, I would think.
Well, yeah, or your family.
Yeah.
Not my family.
Right. No.
Mom,
Not
are you listening? No, but I mean, it's easy to love the lovable, right?
Yeah.
But you have family, you have all these different personalities, and you have to sit down at the same table.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of that is acceptance too. You just accept that the person is that way, and that it's not personal. Like, Bill, you told us to turn our phones off.
I thought I did. My phone is smarter than me.
That was disruptive.
Goodness. It's amazing. This phone is smarter than me. I thought I turned it off. That's okay.
In any event, so I've totally forgot what I was saying.
Well, people, I'm a big believer that people give permission to others to act a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then we empower them. But not to our own benefit always.
Right.
And I think you're sitting here, John, with at least three people. Farrah, we haven't gotten into your client base yet, but that if we look back, we would have done it differently. We might have seen it differently, and so why? And maybe in the future, we'll see it better, more clearly, right up front.
That's always the hope in life, and we tend to learn more when we've had difficulty than when things go well.
Yeah.
We tend not to learn very much from that.
I asked myself, self, what did you learn from this? And what I learned was that you do sometimes have to walk away, and that was the right decision, and to not obsess about it, because you do. It hurts you, and you just keep thinking about it, and it takes on a life of its own in your head, and but just to shut that door, really just to shut that door and move on, and then I feel like just good things will happen. But if you hold on to that and you hyper focus on what happened and how they wronged you and how the time you put into this, I mean, there's nothing good is going to come out of that.
Yeah, and you invite that person onto your pillow at bedtime, and
exactly.
Now they've invaded your psyche and your personal space.
The resentment, the saying about resentment and the poison, I always get it backwards. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
You don't?
No.
Oh, I'm going to mess it up.
Try it. It's okay. You're allowed to make mistakes.
Well, resentment is like giving someone else. Well, see, I'm going to mess it up. The poison one.
Oh, I know what it is. If you, I have it on my bulletin board. I do. Drinking, being angry is it's like giving somebody poison. They drink it, but you punish yourself. Wait a minute.
Drinking poison, hoping the other person will die.
Thank you.
I knew you knew it. Okay.
See that was I had a dyslexic
drinking poison
moment.
And thinking the other person is going to die.
Yeah, that's what we do all the time.
I need to write this stuff down.
That was pretty good, and it's on my
Well,
bulletin board, and I couldn't say it.
Good job.
Um,
Well, yeah, that's what it's like, But you just got to let go.
One of the reasons why I love the depth of the teachings of yoga is that. So what's the purpose? Why would we take our lives and put ourselves in stressful situations and willingly just be in them? And the answer is what we're trying to do in those situations is to place ourselves in a stressful situation and learn to breathe and relax and not resist. And one of the teachings, the ancient teachings of yoga, is sometimes we're strongest when we don't resist.
That just blew my mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so sometimes it's a show of strength to just, I'm not going to fight this anymore.
Right.
I'm just going to not resist.
Yeah.
I think about relationships with people, and now I understand the term mental cruelty. I remember growing up, there was a show on TV. It's Peter's before your time, Divorce Court. Do you remember that?
I remember that.
I would watch Divorce
They have
Court.
reruns, Bill.
They do?
Yes.
Oh, I stopped watching TV, but I used to always ask. I never understood what mental cruelty was, and
Is it a charge?
yeah, I didn't know,
Is it?
and I wouldn't ask. And as a child, you just don't want to ask because you're going to be embarrassed. But there's mental cruelty in business relationships.
Oh, yeah.
But the mental cruelty in personal relationships, it's almost more extreme because it goes on and on and on, and you don't even know which side is up. And we work in our business sometimes with people who are splitting up, divorce situations, and you see the after effects of bad relationships or new beginnings. But it all seems to it has toxic roots, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It can go way, way back, and people don't even know.
Right.
I mean, just thought processing. You're familiar with it's so easy, that Don Miguel Ruiz book, The Four Agreements. Have you read it?
Yes.
Have you guys read it, The Four Agreements?
Probably read the first chapter.
And you passed, and they said you
No,
go
I-
on
I-
to the second
No,
grade.
I just read the first chapter of every book. So I've read the first chapter literally of every book.
Would you just go through what the Four Agreements are?
Yes.
Since it's in front of you?
Number 1,
Okay.
be impeccable with your word. 2, don't take anything personally. That never happens. 3, don't make assumptions. I do those a lot. 4, always do your best. That I try to do.
It sounds so easy. How difficult though, is it to be impeccable with your word?
Okay, just kidding. I don't do that one either. I try. But that's a goal, a real goal.
It is a goal every
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Get up and reset it.
I do. I do try to be.
We're all looking for a way to coexist and to, I guess, give and be respected at the same time, and being recognized.
That's all true.
Is that all true?
Yeah.
Okay. So you're not looking at me like I'm crazy.
No.
But every year we get lessons in life.
Yeah.
And we keep and they never stop. There's no magic formula. They'll never stop. We get ourselves caught up in the drama of other people's. Pete, I love your attitude. I mean, you probably have an affirmation. You have to say it every day. But just looking at you and talking to you, I feel like it's something you hold near to you, that it doesn't leave you. It's something that coexists 24/7. Just not getting too personally involved.
Yeah, Bill, I have to say I have a background in martial arts.
Good to know. Thank
Had
you
a
for
lot
letting
of
us know.
discipline in that. And one of the things that I remember to this day was a quote by Bruce Lee, one of the greatest martial artists ever, but also a philosopher. And I'll try to remember what he said, but this is what I live by. Simplicity is the beginning of nature and the last step in art. Be soft, yet not yielding. Firm, yet not hard.
Right. Your 10-year-old Bella is very lucky to have you as her dad.
Thank you.
Yeah, she really is. That's exactly right. That's something a daughter could relate to in a father figure, huh?
Absolutely.
You're proud of her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Farrah, you have a daughter. Do you have a son too?
I have a son and 2 daughters.
How old?
Well, my son is 17, and my daughter's 14, and my youngest daughter's 10.
They're at a stage where you're a role model for them, and your husband is a role model for them.
Yes.
And you have how you react to situations they can pick up, right?
Yes.
So you have to be very, very careful because they're very impressionable at this age.
Yes, and it's interesting how they all came from the same gene pool, all my children, but they all have different personalities. And it's also funny in their pecking order and how they were born. The oldest is the most mature and responsible, the middle's the quiet, and the baby is the most rowdy. And it's because she always wants to get the attention.
Right.
And she usually does. She manipulates us all. I wouldn't call her my toxic relationship, but she does know how to manipulate me.
Funny, toxic relationships spread to parents and kids too?
Sure.
Really?
Yeah, insanity is actually hereditary.
Oh, no.
I get it from my kids.
I've been infected.
Yeah. Mine are 40, 37, and 25, and it's funny how as they're getting older, I get a lot smarter.
Yes, because right now I'm
Yeah,
probably one of the
dumbest
most
human being in the world.
Yes,
Yeah,
I
that's
don't know
typical.
anything, and I never have. And the best question I ever had was, "Mom, did they have color TV when you were a kid?" I'm like, "Yes, they did." I was born in 1976. They had a lot of things.
That's right.
I graduated college in '75. I'm glad you put that in perspective.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah.
2017, the beginning of a new year is always, new beginnings are always good, and it's always a time to reflect back on issues. And John, thanks for helping coordinate this today, because working with Pete and Rachel, or at least sharing information, it's good to know that there are people out there that think the same way you do, and we share the same values, and we try to do the same things, and things don't always seem to work out, but it just hopefully makes us better. And I mean, my respect for you guys is beyond, because of how you handled, not only how they handled the situation prior to me, it's how they handled it when they figured out that she's moved on to somebody else. That can get into your craw too.
If you let it, yeah.
That's right.
I chose not to.
Right.
There you go. Choosing is important.
So part of this, I guess, has been cathartic, and part of it is it's just a good conversation to have in many different relationships. And Farah, I wish you the best this year. You're on the cutting edge of a business where you're going to run into a lot of emotions and a lot of people. But thanks for all your input today.
Well, thank you, Bill, for having me.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, John, you lead a great discussion.
Thanks.
And Pete and Rachel, I don't have to say what I think of you, but thank you for coming. Yes, I do, right? No. It was a pleasure. Everybody, have a great week, and hopefully we can recognize those toxic situations that come up and deal with them more effectively as we go. Thank you.
Thank you.